that brown tip? That's not just ugly, that's a cry for help. Those little black spots appearing overnight, your plant is literally waving a red flag at you. And that new leaf that came out looking like it perhaps went through a bit of a blender, yeah, your plant, I'm sorry to say, is not okay. Honestly, most people miss these signals until it's too late, but once you learn what to look for, it completely changes how you care for your plants. So grab your coffee or wine if it's that time of day, and let's start to decode what your plants are really trying to tell you. Okay, let's get into the leaf issues. The first one, you know this one. The leaf edges dry out, turn brown, you get maybe brown edges or tips on your leaves, or it looks a little bit crispy on the edges. It just doesn't look like much, but it feels like failure. It feels like you're doing something wrong, but you actually don't know what you're doing wrong. You know what I'm talking about, right? The very edge of the leaf turns light brown, gets all papery and sometimes dry. Sometimes it is just the tip, other times it's actually the whole surface edge of the leaf. Everyone always assumes it's actually a humidity problem, and sometimes it is. But actually, a lot of the time, it's your tap water. It's actually the minerals in your tap water that are causing your plant to build up some salts that it can't actually get rid of easily. So if you are experiencing brown edges or brown tips on your leaves, try switching to filtered water or even distilled water if that's easily accessible to you. And if not, and you don't want to go out and buy all of those plastic water bottles, try going to your local pet store or aquarium store and buy something called tap water conditioner. Honestly, this was a lifesaver when I first tried it out. I had this gorgeous calathea, my beautiful Calathea orbifolia, and no matter what I did, she kept on crisping up on the edges, just a little bit here and there. She's a Calathea. I thought she was just fussy, but I tried giving that plant everything. High humidity. I tried misting at the time. I don't recommend misting, by the way, but I did at the time. I gave it a fancy self-watering pot. I put it in my IKEA cabinet. I tried everything and nothing really worked. It wasn't actually until I switched to filtered water, in this case I used tap water conditioner, that she finally gave me beautiful, big, green leaves without any imperfections. Just quickly, before we dive in further, if you ever find yourself second guessing what a leaf issue means, that is literally why I built my digital tool, My Plant Buddy. It's a custom built digital tool. It's not a blog post, it's not a Reddit rabbit hole, and it definitely is not a plant app with 37 different daily reminders. It is literally just a digital tool that gives you intelligent, personalized advice based on your plant, your light, your location, and your experience level. All you need to do is just tell it what's happening, and it helps you figure out what your plant actually needs. I'll leave the link in the description if you want a little bit more info or if you want to check it out a little bit later. Okay, leaf issue number 2. So this one is actually one of my favorite because I remember almost to the day that I figured all of this out, and it's to do with leaf curling. When I first learned about leaf curling, it honestly made me feel like a bit of a plant whisperer. It was like I had discovered like a secret language that was right in front of me, but I didn't even know about it. So there's 2 types of curling in a plant, and they do mean different things. So the first one is if your leaves are curling upwards, like little tacos kind of thing. That usually means that there's too much heat and or perhaps too much light, and your plant is literally shielding itself, it's folding up, and it's trying to reduce the surface area that is getting that heat or is getting that light. It's trying to hold on to as much moisture as it can. And it's like creating its own little umbrella to shield itself from that extra heat. Now, if it's curling downwards, this one's a different problem most of the time, and it's a little bit worse to be honest, and it's often a cry from the roots to say, I'm suffocating. So when the soil gets too wet or soggy and the roots can't breathe, they're not getting enough oxygen, the roots will suffocate, and then the leaves will respond by curling and drooping downwards. It looks very, very sad. Think about it this way. It's not necessarily big drama, or maybe it is a little bit, but it's really a big message. So make sure you are looking at what that curling is trying to tell you, and of course, adjust accordingly. Honestly, this was one of those first moments a few years ago in plant care when I realized that looking after plants wasn't about rules and schedules. It was about observing the plants, and that shift for me changed everything. Have you ever had like a plant curl dramatically overnight? Have you noticed it and not thought about why? Drop a comment and let me know what it was and whether you figured it out or not. And maybe you might have learned something from today, hopefully. If you have learned something already, if you had a bit of an aha moment, please do give me a thumbs up for this video or comment below, or even considering subscribing to this channel. Okay, the next issue. And honestly, when I see this one, it hurts. It literally hurts emotionally and physically almost. You know that moment you've waited for weeks for a new leaf to push out, you've watched it slowly come out a little bit, you've cheered it on and then it gets stuck and it doesn't move. Or it opens up already brown and a little bit crispy, or worse, it never opens up at all and goes a little bit soggy and it just doesn't do anything. Oh, it's such a heartfelt moment. I know you know that moment, most of you. This is your plant essentially trying to tell you, I'm trying my absolute best, but I just don't have enough energy to finish the job of producing this new leaf. Now, the real why behind this issue is one of those signs that's sometimes really tricky to figure out, unfortunately. Sometimes it's something really obvious. It could be lighting issues, it could be soggy soil, it could be underwatering, but sometimes it's actually a combination of a few different things, and mostly it's a combination of stresses that that plant is getting. Could be moved, could be a whole lot of different things. So you do really need to figure out where that plant has been, and sometimes those stress signals will often pile up without you realizing, and that plant gets stressed and then just doesn't have enough energy to do its job properly to grow new leaves. So, of course, if you've already ruled out the usual suspects that I mentioned earlier and your plant still isn't unfurling properly, honestly, this is where tailored advice probably makes a big difference. And it's less about fixing one thing and more about understanding how all those small things connect. Sometimes what your plant just really needs is good consistency. So don't overcorrect, but just bring it back to its natural state. You might want to dry out the soil a bit if it's overwatered, obviously, but try and bring it back to its natural, consistent looking after, and then your plant should come back to life in a few weeks or even a month, depending on the season. But the good news is it's usually a fixable problem. It just takes a bit of patience. Okay. Leaf issue number 4. So this is a little bit of a difficult one. It's to do with spots on your leaves. So this is where we get to be a bit of detective, because spots on your leaves can make or break your plant's survival, but spots can mean so many different things, unfortunately. And sometimes they can also look really, really similar. So when I'm looking at spots on my leaves, here are a few things that I look for to see if I can find out what it is. Are those spots dry and papery? Do they look like someone's touched the leaf almost with a little bit of a cigarette lighter? That's usually sun scorch or light burn. For me, this happens a lot when my grow lights are touching the leaves because they grow so fast you don't notice them, or they're leaning towards the grow light in the more wintry times, and it will touch the leaf, and over a bit of time it just burns the leaves and it goes a bit of that papery, thin brown part to the leaf. If that spot, however, is maybe a little bit soft or slimy or squishy, this is often bacterial, and especially if there's a yellow halo a little bit around the edge of the problem on that leaf. So it depends how far that bacteria has damaged that leaf. It might be really early and you can just wipe it off, or it might be a little bit more damage and it may not be able to come back from that. When it comes to these spots, the biggest thing you want to see is how fast those spots are spreading, or if they're even spreading, right? If they're spreading spots and they maybe could jump to other leaves, it's definitely more than likely bacterial or a fungal infection. If those spots are staying stagnant or they've just popped up over a couple of days, that is more than likely due to something else. Honestly, it's confusing, and misdiagnosing it can make things worse. So just make sure you do really start to pay attention to how fast it's spreading, how it feels, how those little spots feels, if you can wipe it, if it's moving or if it's staying in place. And look, if you're unsure of this one and of what kind of spot you're looking at, because it's not the easiest thing to diagnose, it never is. Everyone has a different situation, as I mentioned. This is the perfect time to try that little plant bloody tool that I was talking about. Just tell it what spot looks like. Is it dry? Is it squishy? Is it black? Does it have a yellow edge to it? And it helps you start decoding what that leaf problem really is. Yeah, you might want to give My Plant Buddy a go if you can't figure it out, because it'll be really personalized to your situation. Okay. Issue number 5, I'm going to mention, I'm not sure how many photos I'm going to have, I'll try, but issue number 5 is when you see your leaf going yellow, but the stems and the veins within the leaf still stay bright green. It's a bit of an odd one. Have you ever seen this on a leaf? It looks like it's slowly losing color, like someone's like gradually turning the saturation down. It looks weird, right? So that pale yellow green thing with bright green veins, that's often chlorosis. I'll put the spelling in the screen below. And it trips up a lot of people because it actually looks like overwatering and actually looks like your leaf is just yellowing, but it's a little bit more complex than that. If you've seen this before and couldn't quite figure out why your plant was fading, even when everything else seemed fine, honestly, you're not alone in this one. It's not that easy to detect. And it's a symptom that usually points to something below the surface. So I am planning to cover more of this in a future video series. So if you have seen this on your plant, let me know in the comments and I'll make sure to include it. But usually the answer is just a nice balanced fertilizer with micronutrients, and checking your watering habits is a solid first step. So you just want to get that soil maintenance correct, and that should give that plant enough energy, enough nutrients to help figure out the chlorosis issue, if it is indeed that issue. Okay, issue number 6. This is a fun one. Sticky leaves. Now, they can be a trigger panic, right? Trust me, I've been there. Your first thought is usually, it's bugs, it has to be bugs, something's attacking my plant, where's this bug on my leaf, if you see something sticky. And yes, that could honestly be true. You do need to look out for bugs. But sometimes it's just your plant doing its sweet little thing. And I say that with intention because it's making sweet little secretions. And these little sticky sweet spots are called EFNs, extra-floral nectaries. I will put this on the screen, obviously. And these are nectar-producing glands in your plants that are not located in the flower. It happens to quite a few different plants, actually. It happens a lot to philodendrons that I have seen. I know it can happen on ficus. You can have it on, I can't remember, I'll add some in the description of this video below, but a lot of plants do have these, and their job is to attract predatory insects, which mostly, to be honest, is just ants. And those ants then act as a bodyguard for that plant because the ants attack the bugs on that plant. How amazing is that? That whole plant has got its own bodyguard mechanism and uses nature around it to help it fend off other pests. I think that's really, really cool. So yeah, EFNs are tricky because they can be pests or they can be the plant's actual natural reaction. And here's the wild thing. Whenever I see people post about sticky leaves online, half of the comments say pests immediately and the other half say it's totally normal, it's EFNs, don't stress too much. And it's usually almost a little bit of an argument or a fight and no one can really figure it out. And that's true. It's really hard, especially from photos. So the best way to figure it out is if you see the pests, right? Not just ants. Do you see the other pests that are causing the issue? Scale, bugs. What's the other one? Aphids, I think, create a little bit of stickiness. So have a look. If you can see the pests, then it's pests, obviously. If you can't see the pests, then it could be that plant stressing out a little bit and creating its own defense mechanism and creating EFNs on the leaves. And honestly, the misdiagnosis happens all the time because it does look really, really similar. So just know you're not crazy for being unsure. You're not alone. And it absolutely is something that gets misdiagnosed all of the time. Okay, last leaf issue. And this is subtle, but it is important. So I did want to include it. You start noticing tiny yellow dots on your leaves. Tiny, 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 almost like staccato dots, I'm going to say. This could be spider mites. I'm so sorry if you've got spider mites. They're one of the things I absolutely can't stand. But your leaf will tell you about this issue before you see the spider mites. Because honestly, they're so sneaky. You don't see them at first. They're just tiny yellow speckles or white speckles. As I said, a general faded area on the leaf. Spider mites thrive in dry air, especially in winter when you've got the heating on, and especially if that plant is already a little bit of stress, the spider mites can multiply and multiply very quickly. So how do you tell if it is spider mites or if your leaf is just slowly fading away through something else? Well, for me, one of the big things I do, if you can notice really, really close up, you've got to look really close up. If you can see them, great. Even a couple of white or one white or two, they'll almost be a little bit off the leaf, if that makes sense. Again, hopefully I'll try and show you, maybe I'll have to show you a photo, I'm not sure. But if you're not sure, if you can't see the spider mites, or maybe it's a little bit more infected than you are unfortunately hoping, try giving it a really light spray of water. This is the only time I'm going to recommend that you mist your leaves, and spray a little bit of water over where you think those spider mites will be. And you'll notice that little droplets of water will grab onto the webbing that will be there if it's spider mites. And another tip is if you're really not sure, have a look between like the ear, I'll show you. So the earlobes, so if your plant has two high leaves, check in this spot right here because spider mites like to put a little bit of a webbing in between that spot. I find if spider mites are existent on my leaf, I'll find them right next to the veins of the leaf, or I'll find them in that little V spot on the leaf. And especially if you spray that water, you'll see that webbing come really crystal clear when you see the droplets land on the webbing. If you do find those spider mites, treat it with some kind of spray or fungal or wash or whatever it is that you do, and do it ASAP because those spider mites can be really sneaky and hard to catch, and they spread quite quickly. Panic. So if you've made it this far, you're already an amazing plant parent. Seriously, thank you for being here. Let me know in the comments which one of these signs have you seen. Drop it in the comments. Which one made you go, oh, that's what that was. I hope I really helped you there. And if this did help, don't forget to subscribe, and or please do share this channel with a friend who also has problems with their plants or just wants to know about plants and become a more confident plant parent. That's what I'm here for. That's what I'm here to help you guys achieve. Here's the thing though. I don't know if you've noticed, but many of the signs when it comes to leaf issues all come back to one single thing, and that is watering. How much, how often, how well it drains. It's at the root of nearly every plant drama, pun intended, because those roots need to be healthy for that plant to be really healthy. So that's what I'm going to leave you with. In my next video, I'm going to walk you through 5 watering habits that actually helped me grow bigger, bushier, amazing plants. And trust me, one of them still surprises people every single time. So I'm going to leave you with that video right here. Thank you very much for joining me. As always, I'll see you in the next one, bringing you leaves, love and laughter all week long. Have a great week, and thank you for joining me. I'll see you later.